There are conservatives that view the right path forward as just a Bitcoin-only policy because Bitcoin is a commodity, an asset without an issuer, a neutral asset, and there's no controversy. But the president's adopted a more liberal economic policy, and that's his right. He's president of the United States.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you would have preferred it, though, if it was a Bitcoin-only fund.
Hey everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan, and Michael Saylor is calling the Bitcoin maxis conservatives. I'd like to say I agree with Matt Hamilton. Maximalism is a mental disorder. And Joe here, well, he's got that mental disorder. He's a litigator nonetheless. And he says that if he was forced to choose between having a multi-asset crypto reserve and no reserve, he'd pick no reserve. Wow. Just kind of unbelievably mind-blowing. If it's not Bitcoin only, he goes on to say, he'd rather they not do it. How selfish is that? How wrong is that? It just brings me to a point where I'm just speechless. This beautiful card by Steadis really gives me the feeling that I'd like to see this basket grow even more. Don't pick winners and losers. Let's find a way to fairly grade or set a standard that everyone has the same chance to achieve. Doesn't that make perfect sense for everybody? Charles Hoskinson of Cardano is calling out the liars, and he says, let's educate. But you know what, Charles? All of this lack of education is wearing me out. There's got to be a more effective way than to return shotgun blast posts. We have these live streams, and I think we're talking to everybody who is in a bubble. As a person who has fought misinformation in this space for 7+ years, I think it's worse than ever. We need to find a better way. Let's hear the rest of what Michael Saylor has to say, and if you haven't heard this, you're going to be pretty surprised. He has flipped 180 degrees. Have a listen.
You know, I believe that the best thing for the country is to move forward with an enlightened, progressive policy toward digital assets. I think it's worth $100 trillion to the United States, and ultimately there's 4 different assets that people need to come to grips with. A digital commodity like Bitcoin, an asset without an issuer, backed by digital power. A digital currency like a stablecoin, backed by a fiat currency equivalent. A digital security, an asset with an issuer backed by a stock or a bond so we can tokenize Wall Street, and then a digital token, which is an asset with an issuer that's backed by digital utility. I think everybody's trying to come to grips with that taxonomy, and as the market gets more educated, we're going to see more progressive, constructive policy engagement.
I'm positive I don't need to tell you that the market is having a fire sale. Yep, it is a real serious year-end clearance. Nearly half of the top 100 by market cap is in double-digit losses over the last 24 hours. All I can say is if you've got any dry powder on the side, this is the time real wealth is made. The traditional markets are sliding as well with tariffs on Canada, China, and Mexico. Everything is slightly a kilter. And let's see if the maxis will follow Michael Saylor. I expect they don't. Big breaking news out of Japan today. Yes, a stablecoin trading business has been approved. What are the details? This is SBI, and Kondo-san here represents SBI VC Trade, which is the exchange that is wholly owned by SBI Japan. And they have received the first, and so far the only, license to use a stablecoin in payments. And they're going to do so with USDC, and they're on track to launch early, he is quoted as saying. And I just have to put this in. No, all the banks in Japan are not going to use XRP. That is a rumor that just took on a life of its own. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that it's not true, but it's not true. USDC is issued by Circle, and I'll tell you, Circle is making some serious traction around the world globally. And just a little more of that traction I spoke about, stablecoin adoption is surging. XDC is now bridged via the XSwap protocol. It's not wrapped to Circle's USDC. These USD pegged digital assets backed one-to-one with the US dollar will accelerate the real world use cases in this space faster than ever. And a third person who made an announcement with USDC is Jay from Spendabits. You know John Deaton is an investor, and it is for international payments. You can do it on-chain from any country in just seconds, send and receive Bitcoin or USDC. There were a few clips floating around out there on X, but the video in its entirety had less than 130 views this afternoon, and it was just uploaded in the last 24 hours. I want you to listen to Ripple's president, Monica Long, because you can see that they are really searching as a company for that killer use case when it comes to using the XRP Ledger. Have a listen.
One thing, and I mean, a big part of the company is working on it this year is just like, where does XRP Ledger go? So it's one of the OG blockchains. We talked about that. One of its biggest innovations, aside from this novel consensus mechanism, was that the creators created the first decentralized exchange on the protocol itself. And that was their vision was payments. It was like, you know, simply put back then, gateway operator issues an IOU onto the ledger and there's markets created around it. Now this is like a peer-to-peer system, fast free payments globally. Now, of course, those issuers need to be licensed and frankly, the IOUs are really today what we would call stablecoins or tokenized assets. And so we're kind of going back to that original thinking and really leaning into institutional uses of this blockchain. It's, of course, you know, open for, there's lots of non-institutional users building on it, but that's in terms of, you know, the work we do, the amendments we propose to add new features, it's going to be really mostly around institutional finance.
Yeah, funny how you can come full circle. That like actually, sometimes the idea is right, the market wasn't ready.
And finally, a little nugget for you. This is Fiona Murray. She is the managing director in the Singapore office for Ripple. And she's talking to Yorios, which is the co-founder of Axelar. This occurred just a couple of months ago in Singapore. And you know what? I think Axelar is actually going to do it. What do I mean? I mean, do the interoperability among all these chains. I think they've got a shot at it. And I think their token AXL is one to really have a look at. All right, everybody, I'm going to let Orios take you out. And until next time, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
I think everyone wants to know, why does interoperability matter? And then what are the standards that we need to be thinking about in order to bring about that interoperability? So Yorgos, could you help us set that scene a little bit?
Absolutely. So interoperability is only important if you have a lot of chains, right? If there's one big chain where everything settles, you have native interoperability, composability in that chain, right? So first, we need to establish that there's going to be multiple chains. The reason is that we already see this playing out in the permissionless space, right? And the reasons are technical. If you look at any single blockchain, on the permissionless side, it cannot scale to support more than one big applications. And over the last year, we see the biggest applications in the decentralized space launching their own layer 1s and layer 2s. And there's many, many reasons for that, both technical, but also because they want to be able to capture more value from their users. And in such a world, as a user today, you have to hold different wallets on different chains. You have to bridge your assets around. Typically, you have to use a centralized exchange to get good rates. And this is going to be impossible user experience for the average retail user. It's already very hard for crypto-native power users. So how do we make this technology usable? And the asset is interoperability. Right? In a world where we have many, many different blockchains that are fragmented, how can we allow users to only have to think about one interface? Right? So our vision is in a few years, people will have one interface on their phone or their laptop. They'll only have to think about assets and applications. Maybe the asset is on Solana and the application is on a private chain. Users should not have to think about that. So abstracting away the chain and making the technology usable is why interoperability is important.
Understood. So that usability leads to adoption, and that's why we're talking about interoperability here.